You know that feeling, that persistent idea or dream that just won't let go, the one that kind of nudges you, maybe even wakes you up sometimes, hinting at, I don't know, a different path. What if following that feeling, that whisper of destiny, takes you places you never ever imagined? Places that challenge everything you thought you knew about yourself and, well, the world.
That's exactly what we're digging into today. We're cracking open a story actually sent in by one of our listeners that dives deep into just that kind of journey. It's framed as a quest for hidden treasure, sure, but it's really less about the gold, isn't it? It's more about the incredible transformation that happens along the way. We're drawing from Paulo Coelho's classic, The Alchemist, the translation by Alan R. Clark, and we'll be focusing specifically on the very beginning of this adventure, those crucial first steps into the unknown.
Right. So our mission in this deep dive is to really unpack those initial experiences of Santiago, who starts as a simple shepherd boy. He sets out on this whole thing sparked by a recurring dream, and we'll look at the surprising encounters, the really frustrating setbacks, and also the profound wisdom he just stumbles upon way before he even gets close to his supposed destination at the Egyptian pyramids. Okay, so let's unpack this. Where do we even start with Santiago?
Well, we first meet him as a young shepherd in Andalusia, in Spain.
Yeah.
His life seems quite simple, on the surface anyway. Traveling with his flock, finding pastures, sleeping out under the stars. But he's not quite a typical shepherd. He loves to read, for one thing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And he actually talks to his sheep. He believes they understand him, reads them parts of his books, tells them about his life.
That connection he has with the sheep, it's really fascinating. He knows them so well, their habits, their needs. He's learned from them, hasn't he? And from just living that nomadic life, how to read the land, follow signs from nature. So his world is grounded, it's familiar, but there's already this underlying current of someone who really observes and learns from the world around him. He's even thinking about meeting a merchant's daughter in the next village.
But this simple, observant life it gets disrupted. He keeps having the same dream.
Right, the dream.
Yeah, a really powerful one about a treasure buried near the Egyptian pyramids.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so persistent that he feels he has to do something about it. That's what leads him to seek out a gypsy woman for an interpretation.
Ah, the encounter with the gypsy. It's almost jarringly practical, isn't it?
It really is. She confirms the dream is about real treasure, which, must be validating for him. But her focus immediately snaps to the practical side. She wants a tenth of whatever he finds.
Right, no mystical guidance there.
No, it's very transactional.
Mm-hmm.
But it does kind of ground the dream in a
Yeah.
potential, albeit demanding reality for Santiago.
And just when he's maybe trying to process that, perhaps feeling a bit let down or confused back in the town plaza.
Exactly. He has this completely unexpected encounter. He's sitting there reading his book, and this strange old man sits down and just starts talking to him. His appearance is unusual, and then he drops this bombshell he claims to be Melchizedek, the king of Salem.
Whoa, okay. That's definitely out of the blue. That must shift everything for Santiago.
Absolutely. And this is where some of the really foundational ideas of the whole story start coming in. Melchizedek talks about destiny, but he calls it a personal legend.
Personal legend, I like that.
Yeah. And he says everyone knows their personal legend when they're young, but as they get older, this mysterious force starts convincing them it's impossible to achieve.
The mysterious force. It's framed in such an interesting way, like it seems negative, something standing in your way.
Right. But the king suggests it actually helps you realize your destiny. It strengthens your spirit, your will. And then he introduces what he calls the world's greatest lie.
Which is?
That at a certain point in our lives, we lose control and our lives just become controlled by fate.
Right, and Santiago, having already chosen shepherding over becoming a priest, he kind of pushes back on that, doesn't he? He's already made big choices.
He has. And the king counters with this incredibly powerful idea that when you truly want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it.
That's the famous line.
It is. And it's presented not just as, a nice thought, but as a fundamental principle of how the world works in this story.
And the king backs up his claims, doesn't he? By knowing things about Santiago he couldn't possibly know.
Exactly. His parents' names, the seminary he attended, even the name of that merchant's daughter Santiago was thinking about. It's like he could just read Santiago's past right there in the dust.
Okay, that would definitely get my attention.
It gets Santiago's attention for sure. And then the king asks for a pretty steep price for his guidance.
1/10 of his sheep.
Yeah, which is basically everything Santiago owns, his security, his livelihood. But in return, he offers more than just instructions. He gives him tools.
Ah, the stones. Urim and Thummim.
Right. 2 stones from his breastplate, one black, one white, for yes and no. They're meant to help read omens when Santiago's really stuck. But importantly, the king stresses that Santiago should try to make his own decisions whenever he can. It's guidance, not a substitute for his own judgment.
That's a crucial distinction. It's not about handing over control.
Exactly. And before Melchizedek leaves, he tells Santiago a story.
The one about the oil.
Yeah. The shopkeeper's son sent to the wisest man's castle. He's told to explore all the marvels, but also carry a spoon with 2 drops of oil without spilling them. First time, he's so busy looking at everything, he spills the oil. Second time, he focuses only on the oil and misses all the wonders of the castle.
And the lesson is?
The wise man tells him the secret of happiness is to see all the marvels of the world and never forget the drops of oil in the spoon. Meaning, pursue your dreams, see the wonders, but don't neglect your present reality, your responsibilities.
Wow. That story just perfectly sums up the challenge Santiago's facing, doesn't it? He's got this grand dream, the marvels of the pyramids, but he also has his drops of oil, his comfortable life, his sheep.
Precisely. And the king's words, the omen of the stones, they nudge him. But ultimately, Santiago has to make that incredibly tough decision.
And he does. He chooses to sell his sheep, to let go of everything familiar and secure and just step into the complete unknown to follow this dream. That's a massive act of faith right there at the start.
It really is. And what happens almost immediately after he takes that huge leap of faith?
Oh, yeah. He faces just a devastating setback.
He arrives in Tangier, Morocco. It's a port town, bustling, vibrant, but completely foreign after his life in Spain. He's probably a bit overwhelmed, maybe a little too trusting.
And he's carrying all his money from selling the sheep.
All of it. And he quickly meets this young man who speaks Spanish, offers to be his guide. And Santiago, maybe wanting to believe the universe is conspiring, maybe just naive.
He makes a critical mistake.
He does. He shows the stranger all his money, his entire net worth.
Oh, Santiago. Which predictably leads to him getting robbed.
Yeah. While he's momentarily distracted by something beautiful in the marketplace, a sword, I think the young man just vanishes with everything.
Brutal. Just brutal. The book describes his absolute despair, doesn't it? His tears. He's hit rock bottom almost the second he starts his journey.
It's that moment where you could totally see him giving up, going home, becoming bitter, proving that world's greatest lie, right? That life just happens to you.
What does he find in his pouch?
Yes. The stones. Urim and Thummim.
Exactly.
And finding those stones, it's more than just finding objects, isn't it? It seems to reconnect him instantly to the king's words, to the path he chose, to the idea that there's some purpose behind all this, even this disaster. It gives him just a sliver of hope.
And then he has this really sharp realization about why he was so vulnerable.
Yes. He thinks, I'm like everyone else. I see the world in terms of what I would like to see happen, not what actually does.
He realizes the bar owner, back when he first met the thief, the owner looked irritated or tried to warn him somehow.
Right, an omen he missed because he was caught up in his own hopeful expectations. So this massive setback immediately teaches him a vital lesson about paying attention, about trusting those subtle signs, not just the big dramatic ones.
So instead of retreating, he digs in. He resolves to stay in Tangier and somehow earn the money back.
Right. This setback forces him onto a detour, a path he never intended, which leads him straight to his next big encounter.
The crystal merchant.
The crystal merchant, whose shop is kind of struggling, up on a hill, not much foot traffic. And the merchant himself seems, well, stuck, unhappy.
Santiago gets a job just cleaning the crystal glasses, right? And he immediately sees the merchant's stagnation, like 30 years in the same place, doing the exact same thing.
And Santiago, full of this energy from his own quest, even after the robbery, he starts suggesting simple things. Build a display case outside, maybe sell tea and the pretty crystal glasses.
And it works. Business booms. It brings life back into the shop.
It does. But the really fascinating part is the merchant's reaction to all this success. It reveals his own deep-seated stagnation.
He has his own dream, doesn't he, to go to Mecca?
Yes, but he's afraid to actually do it. He literally says he believes that if he achieves his dream, he'll have nothing left to live for. He prefers the idea of the dream, the comfort of having it out there, to the potential emptiness he imagines comes after fulfilling it.
Wow. That is such a powerful insight. The merchant isn't just some side character. He represents a different kind of fear, doesn't he? Not Santiago's fear of the unknown, but the fear of actually getting what you want and then... what?
Exactly. It highlights that pursuing a dream isn't just about overcoming external hurdles. It's also about confronting that internal resistance, maybe even resistance to success itself. It's a stark contrast to Santiago, who, even after being robbed blind, is still driven to live his dream.
And Santiago learns from this whole experience too, right? He connects it back to his time with the sheep.
He does. He learns what the book calls the language without words. That energy, that enthusiasm, the sense of purpose that flows when you're engaged in work you believe in, when you feel connected. He even feels like the crystal itself is sort of collaborating with their success.
So after nearly a year working there,
Almost a whole year, yeah.
Santiago has earned way more money than he lost, and enough to buy like twice as many sheep as he started with.
Right. He could absolutely go back to Spain a winner by any conventional standard, richer than before.
Hmm.
And the thought definitely crosses his mind.
It's another huge decision point for him. He's financially recovered, even prospered. He feels comfortable in Tangier now. He knows the place, feels confident, like he could conquer the world right there.
But then subtle omens start cropping up again, telling him it's time to move on.
And when he tells the crystal merchant he's leaving, intending to buy sheep.
The merchant blesses him, but he kind of sees through it, doesn't he?
Mm.
He knows Santiago isn't really going back to buy sheep, and he says, Maktub.
It is written.
Yeah. And that word Maktub seems to hit Santiago hard. He finds Urim and Thummim in his pouch again, and it just snaps him back to the bigger picture. The old king, his personal legend, the dream of the pyramids. He realizes that going back to being a shepherd, even a successful one, just isn't his true dream anymore. The journey itself has changed him too much.
So he makes the call, uses the money not for sheep, but to keep going towards Egypt.
He does, which means taking the next big step. Joining a caravan heading across the vast Sahara Desert.
Another huge shift in environment. From Spain to Tangier, now the Sahara.
Totally. It's chaotic at first, then very demanding, very disciplined under the caravan leader. Obedience, reading the subtle signs of the desert, those become essential just for survival out there.
And on this leg of the journey, he meets the Englishman.
Right. Another seeker on a quest, but a totally different type. The Englishman is searching for a real alchemist, obsessed with learning the secrets of alchemy, the masterwork, the philosopher's stone, the elixir of life, but entirely through books.
Ah, so this sets up a really interesting contrast in how people learn, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Santiago learns through direct experience, observation, intuition, just interacting with the world, with sheep, with crystal.
While the Englishman learns through complex texts, theories, intellectual effort.
Exactly. Santiago actually tries reading some of the Englishman's dense alchemy books, learns about the soul of the world, but finds the complicated explanations kind of irritating compared to the intuitive understanding he's starting to develop on his own.
So what does that contrast tell us? Maybe that there isn't just one way to knowledge.
I think so. The Englishman is chasing knowledge through accumulated wisdom, trying to grasp the complex rules. Santiago is learning the language without words, directly from the world itself, from the desert, from the wind. They're both seekers, just using very different maps.
And Santiago does learn profoundly from the desert itself, doesn't he?
Oh, definitely. The silence, the wind, the levanter, which reminds him of home and his sheep. The sheer vastness that makes everyone feel small. He learns more about intuition, about how everything feels connected in this universal current, how people's histories are sort of woven together.
And I also get the story of the camel driver.
Right, another key figure. He lost everything, his orchard, in a flood, a huge setback. But from that, he learned not to fear the unknown. Because, as he puts it, his life story and the history of the world were written by the same hand. Maktub.
But his maktub feels different from the crystal merchants, doesn't it? It's not passive resignation.
Not at all. It's more like acceptance of a larger flow, a trust in the path that unfolds even when it involves loss. It's an active kind of faith, really.
So the caravan journey is long, tough, a real test of patience. But eventually, they arrive at the oasis.
The oasis of Al Fayoum. And it's described as way more than just a little watering hole.
Wow.
It's a large settlement, a place of refuge, neutral ground in the middle of tribal wars, a symbol of life and safety in that harsh desert.
And it's here, at the well.
At the well.
Yeah.
That's where Santiago meets Fatima. And the connection is described as just instantaneous, profound. He realizes he's experiencing the purest form of that language of the world that King talked about love.
There's that beautiful detail, too, that he felt he'd loved her before he even knew she existed, like the Levanter wind carried her scent to him back in Spain, an omen he didn't get then but understands now.
It's powerful. He falls deeply in love, and for a moment, Phasma seems more important than the treasure. His personal legend almost feels complete just being there with her.
But the journey isn't over yet, and his ability to read omens, the skill he's been honing.
It gets put to its most critical test so far. He sees an omen in the flight of two hawks, a clear vision, an army attacking the oasis.
Despite being terrified, despite being a total outsider.
He trusts what he saw. He tells the camel driver, who then takes him to the tribal chieftains. And presenting a warning like that, based on birds, to these powerful leaders, it's incredibly risky. His life is literally on the line.
But there's an elder there who respects the desert's messages, and Santiago's courage in speaking up, trusting his intuition, it validates the omen.
It ultimately saves the oasis. It's a huge moment. He's gone from reading the ground for good pasture for his sheep to reading the flight of birds to save hundreds, maybe thousands of lives. It shows the real practical power of the intuition he's been developing.
Wow, what a start to a quest, huh? Santiago steps way out of his comfort zone, sells everything familiar, all based on a dream and, the words of this mysterious king.
And bam, almost immediately faces that devastating robbery. But instead of folding, he adapts. He finds work with the crystal merchant, learns patience, learns about that language without words and purposeful work, and gets that crucial insight into the fear of achieving dreams, not just failing them. He gets his money back, sure, but more importantly, he gains so much wisdom.
Then the long trek across the desert brings totally new perspectives. The Englishman showing a different paths to knowledge, the camel driver teaching about acceptance and maktub, and just when he's maybe getting caught up in all that, he arrives at the oasis and finds love, recognizes it as the pure language of the world. And boom, almost right away, his ability to read omens, honed through all that quiet observation and trust, is put to this life or death test. And it works.
It's really remarkable how this first part is just packed with these fundamental themes and tests, isn't it? Listening to your heart, dealing with obstacles, finding lessons in the most unexpected places and people, the power of love, and just the absolute necessity of courage and trusting the signs around you. Even before he meets the actual alchemist of the title, Santiago's understanding of himself and the world has been completely reshaped just by taking those first uncertain steps.
Exactly. He started as, well, a simple shepherd talking to his sheep. And he ends this whole section as a man who can read the flight of birds accurately enough to save an entire community. He's learned from sheep, from crystal, from deserts, from books, from love, from betrayal. It really makes you eager to see what happens next, doesn't it? What new tests and transformations are waiting when he finally connects with the legendary alchemist and gets closer to that treasure.
And it definitely leaves you with a question, maybe for you, the listener, to think about. If you look back at your own journey, your own life so far, what unexpected detours or even setbacks turned out to be really crucial steps? What did they teach you that maybe you wouldn't have learned on a more direct, easier path?